It's Nico time in Knoxville, ladies and gentlemen. There's a new quarterback to lead Josh Heupel's group into another season in the SEC. Another season in where they're going to try to figure out where they rank. Well, I'm going to tell you what I think. This is going to be a very, very competitive team and a team that could they potentially push for a college football playoff spot? That's the question I aim to answer in this video, and you're about to find out what I think right after this. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and welcome to my channel. I am previewing and predicting all 134 FBS level college football teams this summer, and that means I'm doing your favorite team. So hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded, and thank you for watching this video. It helps support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine, and if you would like to continue to support what I do here on YouTube, please like, comment, share, watch my other videos, and do anything else you can to support or interact with the channel because it does mean a lot to me, and it does do a lot for what I do here on YouTube. We're going to dive on into talking about Tennessee football in just a moment, but I got to tell you how we do predictions on the channel first. We're going to take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the team's defense, and then we will go through game by game and give the Tennessee football schedule a little preview and prediction as well with a finalized record. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Tennessee Volunteers in 2024. Couple footnotes before we start. Over here are going to be the stats of the team, either the team's offense or defense put up last year, again depending on what the header right over there says. And then right down here below the team's logo, for your viewing pleasure of course, I have put the team's coaching staff. So I will waste no more time. Let's begin with the Tennessee Volunteers. You got to start with the most important position on the field. I previewed who the starting quarterback is going to be this year already, but you have to talk about who's leaving this room first. The starter from last year, Joe Milton III, is gone. 2,813 yards, 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions with 64% completion percentage. Definitely would have liked to see a little higher numbers from Joe Milton. The guy is an absolute gunslinger. He's got a huge arm. He will not be the starting quarterback for Tennessee in 2024. Nico Iamaleava. That is how you pronounce that last name, and if I'm wrong, please correct me in the comment section below, because that's how I'll say it throughout this video. Iamaleava will be that starting quarterback for Tennessee in 2024. Last season, did play a little bit, had 45 pass attempts, 314 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks on 62% completion percentage, but he was a highly touted and highly recruited player. He's coming in here with lofty expectations. He's got a great skill position room that we're about to go through here in just a minute, and Iamaleava has all the tools necessary to be a very successful quarterback for Tennessee, and one of the most successful people are talking since Peyton Manning. That is high praise for a kid that I think is going to be really, really talented, and maybe people aren't saying that out there, but hey, take it from me, right? That is my personal opinion. Again, lofty standards to hold that kid up to, but basically what I'm trying to say is Iamaleava, I think, is going to have a great college career. I think he's going to flourish in this Josh Heupel and the offensive coordinator, Joey Housel's system, and his skill position room is going to look like this. You do lose a couple very talented backs to the NFL. Jalen Wright was the leading rusher last year, just a tick over 1,000 yards, 1,013 to be exact, with 4 touchdowns. And Jabari Small, 95 carries, 475 yards, and 2 touchdowns last season. He's gone to the league as well. You do return Dylan Sampson. One second. Oh, that's better now that we got the spelling right. So Dylan Sampson is coming back, as well as guys like Cameron Seldon and Khalifa Keith. But Dylan Sampson is going to be the lead running back here in this room. The rushing attack may very well take a dip back from where it was last year. They had over 200 yards per game last season, 2,600 yards in total as a team on the season last year. Iamaleava brings a little bit of a rush game, 20 carries for 71 yards. I believe sack yardage is included in there as well. He was sacked about 7 times last year for 3 touchdowns last season. So he definitely brings a rushing presence to the team as well, but it will be led by Dylan Sampson, who had 600 yards last season. But the wide receiver room is loaded. Your really only notable loss is Ramel Keaton. He is gone to the NFL, 642 yards and 6 touchdowns for him last year. Let's talk about the tight end room, as it does coordinate as a passing, or I should say, as it coordinates as a receiver as well. McCallan Castles is a tight end that is going to the league, 283 yards, 5 touchdowns last year, as well as Jacob Warren, who was the second leading receiver among tight ends last year, 4 touchdowns. He is also gone. this is still a loaded pass catching room. Squirrel White is coming back and is the most talented weapon in this room. You could argue, maybe besides that next name in Brew McCoy, who had a gruesome injury last season, but he is coming back. He'll be a big part of this wide receiver room. But Squirrel White last year, 803 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is going to be a staple and one of the better receivers in the SEC, in my opinion. Dante Thornton is going to be coming back as well. I believe there's an extra apostrophe in there, so I apologize for that. Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb are all going to be coming back as well. And as we get the extra apostrophe fixed, my apologies, there are some transfers coming into this wide receiver room as well. Chris Brazzell comes over from Tulane. He's a 4-star transfer. That's a really good pickup for Tennessee, a very talented wide receiver during his time at Tulane. And then Tommy Winton III comes over from an FCS program, but an in-state program in East Tennessee State. I believe was the lead receiver over there, if not was close to the top. Both of those will be huge additions to this Tennessee wide receiver room. And then in the tight end room, Ethan Davis does come back, but they wanted a little bit more from the transfer portal. So they went out and they got Holden Stays to be that starting tight end, more likely than not. He's coming over from Notre Dame. And then Miles Kitselman is coming over from Alabama, one of Tennessee's bigger rivals. He'll be playing a tight end role for the Tennessee Volunteers this year. You do lose a couple offensive linemen to the portal, but John Campbell Jr., Javontes Spraggins, Cooper Mays, Jackson Lampley, Dane Davis are all coming back, and Lance Hurd is coming in through the portal. He is not a Tennessee transfer. He's coming over to Tennessee from LSU, another program within the SEC. This offense is going to go as far as Nico Iamaleava is going to take them. I think the run game is going to be really, really solid, and the run game usually in the Josh Heupel offense is really, really good. The wide receiver room is loaded. I think Squirrel White and Brew McCoy are going to fit in really well and form some great chemistry with Nico. This is going to be a really good offense in 2024. Again, can Iamaleava live up to all the hype that has been put into him through this program? I think that is the big question to answer, and that is the big thing to watch for this offense in 2024. When you talk about the defense here, the defense actually was really solid last year. Yes, Tennessee does have some defensive questions entering this season, but overall, it definitely was not a bad defense last year at all. It honestly was a pretty solid defensive unit. I think I've given it a little less credit than what it actually deserves in some previous videos when I've talked about the Tennessee Volunteers. Yes, there are still defensive questions, and we will address them, but this is still a really good defensive roster. You have to talk about what they leave, you have to talk about what they lose before you talk about what they are getting back. So Tyler Barron is going to be gone through the transfer portal. Originally was committed over to Louisville and then went over to a different program. And off the top of my head, I cannot remember where that is, but 28 tackles and 6 sacks for him last year. You also do lose a couple guys in Garland and Harrison to graduation. But James Pierce Jr., he is one of the best defensive players in the entire country, and a really good shot to go number 1 overall in the upcoming NFL draft next April. James Pierce Jr., 27 tackles, 9.5 sacks, which led the Volunteers last year. He is a force of havoc on that defensive line, and he will be again in 2024. He's got a lot of other talent returning behind him. Omari Thomas, Bryson Eason, Tyre West, Omar Norman, Lott, Dominic Bailey, Joshua Josephs, Elijah Simmons. I could go on and on and on. This is a very, very good defensive line room led by one of the best defensive players in the country. Elijah Herring, a linebacker, has gone through the portal. He was the leading tackler of this team last season, so a little bit of a surprise transfer. He is actually going over to Memphis, another team within the state, so Herring will be going over there. And Aaron Beasley, who is the second leading tackler, is gone through graduation. 69 tackles and 3 sacks for him last year. Still, some pretty talented linebackers in this room. Keenan Peely, Arian Carter, Jeremiah Talander, and Khalid Perry will all be coming back to highlight this linebacker room. Your defensive back room does lose a ton of talent as well, and I think this is where a lot of the questions surface defensively for Tennessee, at least in my mind. Kamal Haddon and Gabe Judy Lawley were 2 great corners that are gone to the NFL. And then you do lose a lot of guys through the transfer portal. Tunage, Burrell, and Slaughter all leave to go to other programs. Jalen McCullough is a safety that's going to be leaving this room. 58 tackles, 4 pass defended, 3 interceptions for him last year, as well as Walker, McDonald, and Luttrell are all guys that are going to be leaving through the transfer portal. So your defensive back room looks like this. Some returners in the cornerback room, Ricky Gibson and Jordan Matthews. And then the safety room, you have Andre Turrentine, who honestly is a really big get back here for this team. He's going to be a really good defensive back for this team, I believe, especially at that safety position. Will Brooks, Jordan Thomas, or some other returners, but you had to supplement with some transfers with all that you lost through the portal. So when you talk about cornerbacks, Jermod McCoy comes over from Oregon State. And then you also have Jalen McMurray coming over from Temple. And in the safety position, you have a transfer in Jacoby Thomas, who comes over from Middle Tennessee. And then Boo Carter is a freshman coming in that, with especially the thinning out of this defensive back room through the transfer portal, I think is going to come in and play some pretty important minutes. And kickers are people too. Let's show them some love. So Charles Campbell, the kicker from last year, has graduated. Ross Jackson will return as the punter, while Josh Turbyville, what a last name that is, should be taking over the kicking duties for this volunteer program. The defensive front seven does not have a lot of questions for me at all. I am very confident in the defensive front seven's abilities, again, led by James Pierce. The questions for this team, it's been a so-so pass defense, and at times it really wasn't great last season. The rush defense, I don't have a whole lot of questions about. It's going to be pretty solid. It's that pass defense. Are they going to be able to defend the pass as well as they need to have a very successful season and even to push for a spot in the college football playoff? The offense is going to be really, really talented, but this defensive back room lost a ton of talent. While it does return some really, really good players, a lot of their better defensive backs and leaders from last year are gone. How do they supplement? That'll be something interesting to find out, in my opinion. Here is the schedule for Tennessee in 2024. Any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road will be in italics, guys. That's that slanted text, and any neutral site game is listed as accordingly. There's one on the schedule. Second game, we'll get to it here in just a little bit. Any game in green is going to be a game that I think the Volunteers are going to win easily, while any game in yellow is going to be a tricky game for them to win, but I still think they pull out the W, and red, of course, is going to be a loss. We'll skip right to week 2 because they are going to have absolutely no trouble beating Chattanooga in week 1. So we move on to week 2 against the NC State Wolfpack, and this to me is a very, very interesting game. NC State has got a lot of talented transfers coming over, both offensively and defensively, and you know the style of defense that Dave Doeren's Wolfpack like to play. They are feisty, they are fierce, and now they have a ton of experience on offense coming in through the portal. Jordan Waters is a transfer from Duke in the running back room. He's not even their biggest transfer. Grayson McCall comes over from Coastal Carolina to play quarterback for this team, and I think he's going to excel and have an absolutely tremendous season. I think Iamaleava is going to outduel him here. I love the upside that he has, and I like this Tennessee wide receiver room a lot more. Now, the secondary, I think, is going to have some trouble in being able to defend this Grayson McCall pass game because while I do like the Tennessee wide receiver room a little bit better, I think NC State's wide receiver room is going to be very overlooked and underrated. It's got some very good players in it. I think there are a couple transfers coming in there as well. This is an NC State offense you got to watch out for, a defense that's going to play hard. Wouldn't surprise me if either team won this game, but I am going with the Tennessee Volunteers here, among me liking just some of their offensive pieces a little bit better, and I think Iamaleava is going to be an absolute star. I think the defensive front seven will be able to create some havoc on this NC State offensive line, and Tennessee will be able to walk away with the win in Charlotte, but that is going to be one heck of a football game to watch. That is must-see TV. I'm really liking that matchup. I think Tennessee wins it as of right now. Kent State, not going to be a problem. The Golden Flashes were not very good last season, and they're really no competition to Tennessee. So I think the Volunteers win that one. But I do think your first loss of the season comes on the road against the Sooners team that is going to improve defensively. Yes, you do lose Dylan Gabriel, but Jackson Arnold comes in, and sure, while you lose Drake Stoops, everyone else in that wide receiver room comes back. You get Deion Burks from the transfer portal, a very, very talented wide receiver coming over from Purdue. I love the weapons that Jackson Arnold has, and much like Nico Iamaleava, I think he's going to end up being a really, really good player. He's got a very experienced wide receiver room, and this is where Tennessee's questions in that defensive back room in terms of just, again, how do you fill in as much talent as you lost? Oklahoma's going to be able to take advantage of that. I think the Sooners are going to have a really good pass game this year. I think that's what you're going to need to beat Tennessee this year. And while James Pierce and that defensive front, I think are going to get back to Jackson Arnold a couple of times, the secondary does not hold up its end of the bargain, and Oklahoma walks away with a win in Norman to hand Tennessee their first loss of the season. Then comes Tennessee's first bye week. Yes, I said first. It's an odd year with an extra weekend, so every team gets 2 bye weeks. You go on the road against an Arkansas team that, look, I could also see Tennessee losing this game, but they are much more talented than Arkansas, and the Hogs have a lot of things to get figured out. KJ Jefferson is gone. A lot of very talented players from this team over the past couple of seasons have left. This just feels like a little bit of a depleted roster. Well, not necessarily in terms of talent. They have some good players on it, but just in terms of some of the players that you had last year, like Jefferson and others leaving through the transfer portal, there are a lot more questions than answers with Arkansas. I think the road environment makes it tough on Tennessee, but the Volunteers still win. They get to come back home and play Florida. Billy Napier's team is really interesting to figure out. I think for the most part, Florida will be a competitive team in the SEC this year. Their schedule is really tough, but I could still see them fighting their way through to a bowl game. I do not think they are talented enough to beat Tennessee, especially on the road. Give me the Volunteers to win that one. They get to stay at home for one of the best rivalries in the SEC. Third Saturday in October, it's Tennessee versus the Alabama Crimson Tide, and I do have the Crimson Tide being able to walk away victorious from this game. Jalen Milroe is still a really, really good quarterback who's got a lot of great skill position players, has got a lot of very, very good weapons, and even though Nick Saban is gone, a lot of talent leaves with him. Some starting offensive lineman, one of, if not the best player in college football in Caleb Downs, has gone over to join Ryan Day's squad in Columbus. Alabama's still going to be a really, really good team, and Kalen DeBoer's been a winner everywhere he's gone. He's going to continue to be a winner there in Tuscaloosa with everything that program has going for it, and Tennessee has had their fair share of struggles apart from a couple years ago. The last time this game was in Neyland Stadium, again, the goalpost ended up in the river. I don't think it's a game that I fully see Tennessee not being able to win. They absolutely can win it. I just don't think they do. Alabama beats Tennessee in the rivalry game. The next 2 games, though, again, Tennessee 4 straight home games here with the bye game split right in between them. So after your bye week, I think you win these next 2 games. Kentucky is going to be an interesting team to watch this year. I think there are a lot of good players. They're going to be competitive, but Tennessee's too talented. Mississippi State's got a lot to figure out. I just haven't been a fan of the Jeff Lebby hire. I don't think the rebuild is going to go in the direction that he wants it, and I think that the fans in Starkville might be a little disappointed in 2024. I got Tennessee being able to easily win that one. Here's the one game on the schedule that I just don't think Tennessee is going to win. I don't think you're going to beat Georgia. With all the physicality on defense and all the weapons they have offensively, Carson Beck is one of the more underappreciated quarterbacks in the nation, which is going to change in 2024. He had a monster season last year, is I think going to have another monster season in 2024. Georgia's one of, if not the best teams in the country. I don't see the Volunteers beating the Dogs, especially on the road, but you will win your final 2 games of the year. I think you easily beat UTEP and you easily beat Vanderbilt to move to a record of 9-3, which, considering everything, is not that bad of a record at all. There are a lot of tricky games on this schedule. Oklahoma on the road is going to be tricky. Alabama, of course, being the rivalry game, is always a get-up game for either program. Georgia on the road, I just don't think is a game that you win. The NC State game is challenging. Who knows what Arkansas is going to be this year? You got a couple teams coming in the Neyland Stadium that could be sneaky competitive, like Kentucky and Florida. I still see 9-3. I think Iamaleava is going to be a star, and especially if Tennessee can get some of those question marks figured out in the defensive back room, and maybe they show a little bit more. Again, I just don't have a ton of confidence in that defensive back room. I think they have some good players. They're going to make some plays, but overall, I think it could lead to their downfall in a couple games this year, especially that game against Oklahoma, where Jackson Arnold's going to have a good passing attack. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble. Iamaleava will lead a very good offense. The defensive front will be good. James Pierce will be a great player. I got Tennessee going 9-3 in 2024. Let me know what you have the Volunteers going this year, and we're going to move on to Oklahoma State. That's the next video up, team out of the Big 12. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next one. Goodbye.